The July 11th, 2023 work session of the Montgomery County Board of Education will come to order. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Please remember to mute all electronic devices. A majority of the voting members, 4, shall constitute a quorum for this meeting of the Montgomery Board of Education. There are 5 members present. I declare a quorum is present. The agenda has been posted for our review earlier. If there are no objections, we will adopt the agenda by unanimous consent.
Madam Chair, I would like to add in attorney to be discussed in the work session.
Did you say?
To add the letter N and change new business to O, so to add attorney,
Okay.
to just discuss the attorney.
And I second that.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
And I would like to take D, E,
I can only do one at a time.
and,
Let's,
okay, sorry, I thought we'd
yes,
already.
no,
Okay.
no. Is there any discussion? Are we ready to vote on the addition of an attorney to the new business? Okay. Hearing no discussion, we will now vote. All in favor, let it be known by raising your hand.
We was talking about it, just adding, talking about attorney.
Is it 4? It's a unanimous vote.
Yeah, we're not voting on it, just talking about it.
Okay. Is there any other discussions?
Yes, I would like to take D, E, and, hang on, I'm looking, I had them all listed out. D, E, and there was another policy on here.
He's not a policy. He's not a policy, he's a
No,
facility.
am I looking, hang on a minute, let me go back, I'm sorry, give me a moment. No, I know, hang on, I'm gonna call them out to you. G, H, and L. I want to table those until we have further discussion to review them and have some conversation about them. I don't want to just go with those particular policies, even though they're an addendum. I still think there's some things, we're always looking at policy, so I think we need to table those and have some conversations, whether it's in an executive session or whether it's in a special board meeting. I'd like to table those until we get some conversation between all of us.
Let me make sure that I have this correct. G, H, and I?
J,
J, H, and I?
I said G, H, and L, I'm sorry, the other policy on there.
G, H, and L.
Yes, there's 3 policies on there.
Okay.
Just for clarity, that's what the work session's for, to discuss those. And L's only as a draft for first read. That's not for approval tonight.
Okay, well, I just don't wanna vote on that tonight.
So that would be during the regular board meeting.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's fine.
Would you like to withdraw?
I will withdraw and
Okay.
discuss it later.
Are there any further additions? Dr. Brown, did you want to, this M is M what we added?
M is what we added,
Okay,
correct,
all right,
yes.
thank you. Is there any further additions or discussions? Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I move that we accept the agenda with the added addition of N, attorney, and changing N, new business to O, so that the agenda will follow. as it's newly amended and written.
I second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Are we ready to vote? If we're ready to vote, please let your vote be known by raising your hand. It's unanimous. Okay. Thank you. We now have several reports to receive and updates as well. As our information is presented, we will take them in order. And first on the agenda is Volkert. I'm sorry,
Your audit report.
the audit report. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. I'm always thinking it is Volker.
I'm here on behalf of the State of Alabama Department of Examiners of Public Accounts to present our audit report on the Montgomery County Board of Education covering the period October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. We conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards for the purpose of rendering an opinion on the financial statements and to determine whether the board complied with applicable laws and regulations. We also conducted an audit of the board's federal financial assistance programs in accordance with those same standards and the requirements of Title II U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, Part 200, Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards, also known as Uniform Guidance. We issued an unmodified opinion on the board's financial statements as of and for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2022. This means that the financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. In addition, we issued an unmodified opinion on the board's major federal financial assistance programs, which for the year were the Child Nutrition Cluster, Emergency Connectivity Fund Program, and the Education Stabilization Fund. The local school selected for comprehensive testing was Vaughn Road Elementary School. All other schools were subjected to limited testing. We reported no findings in our report. The entire report is available on our website at www.examiners.alabama.gov under the Search Audit Reports tab. This concludes my presentation. I would like to thank you and your central office staff for your assistance and cooperation during the audit process. We look forward to seeing you all again next year.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Are there any questions of Mrs. White? Hearing none, that's the greatest news that we could have heard today. Next, we will
I
have,
think we need to just give our staff a round of applause from every school. Thank you. We've come a long way.
Stand up, Mr. Watt. You deserve a clap.
And there was not only
thank you. We will now move to our update from the Volker. Mr. Slater.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've got a little PowerPoint for this month's update. Also, we probably went a little out of protocol and put some information on your desk in front of you there that probably should have gone through the normal channels. But this is what's there is everything that's in your weekly updates as it is right now. It's just got a little bit more pictures in it. So. This month's update is based on Flowers Elementary School, which is the new school to replace the existing school. This is the aerial view of it showing the old school, and the new school would be to the right in the green space there. It's approximately 84,000 square feet, and 31 standard elementary school classrooms, 5 exceptional ed school classrooms, an art room, with an outdoor patio, music, gymnasium, cafeteria with seating for 220, so they can do 3 lunch waves easily, a media center, admin suite, secured entry vestibule to where we can limit entry into the school, and a storm shelter area for tornadoes. This is the overall floor plan of it. The admin suite is upper left, with the gymnasium coming about middle of the page here. Next is the art, music, and media center there. The first wing that would be closest to you on the left is the cafeteria, and then the shaded classroom wing is the storm shelter area, which will kindergartens and such will be in there, and then the other 2 were standard classroom wings. Here's some nice color renderings of it. This would be as you're standing across the street on Harrison, looking at the school, with the admin area to the right. The big box in the middle, of course, is a gym, and then the library is the other high-colored red area. It's another just view of standing a little bit closer to it. And this would be the library, the library. The front office area. Just a view of a corridor. This is what the library will look like. Nice and open, lots of natural light. Have clouds in the ceilings to knock the noise down and just give it a nice space. This is the cafeteria. A lot of the acoustical clouds there too. A lot of open space. This is a standard classroom. We're expected to have the DCM submission, the final submission to the state by the end of this month, and probably bid middle of September, with a notice to proceed to start in this fall. Our next portion is our current MBE DBE reporting, and right now we've got the total professional services fees are 21.3, and of that 10.8, or just over 50%, gone MBE DBE. I'd like to also add that South Lawn Middle was supposed to have bid by the end of June, and we had a couple of addenda to go out to change some things that DCM sent out, and it's scheduled to bid next Thursday, the 20th. In Park Crossing, the field house at Park Crossing will bid on the 27th is what the current schedule is, and we'll be doing the JAG field house sometime in August, and like I said earlier, flowers will be bidding in September. So there'll be several projects getting underway here in the next couple of months. Okay. Any questions or comments? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you. The next item on the agenda, Montgomery Education Foundation with an update on 3 conversion schools. Ms. Ann Sykes.
Good evening, Chairwoman Brown and board members, and Dr. Brown. I wanted to, wait a minute, sorry, my crew is supposed to be standing up. I don't stand here alone. This work doesn't get done alone, just like none of us. We all stand together. And so have a little bit of our community and team. So I'm going to take just a quick moment to introduce Erica Anderson, who is most recent Davis principal for the first year, but she's now the regional director for our conversion process. Dr. Mary Holloway, principal at Bell and Graham Middle School. Weather, and Kenneth Kirkland, new principal at Davis Elementary. So this is just a portion of the leadership team, but I wanted opportunity for them to meet you and you to meet them. We're going to try and be very efficient with the 10 minutes we have. So you have in front of you a blue folder. So if you want to open that up, and while you do that, I simply want to, first of all, say this started in 2017, really. So it's been a journey, and it's been a journey for all of us. And I say all of us because we think of this in terms of all of us in partnership. The conversion school is done as a part of MPS, not separate from MPS. It was intentionally chosen because it is still part of the district. Students are the MPS students. The results that are achieved will be MPS's results. They go to MPS's data. Student increase in attendance will go to MPS's ADM and funding. So this is really about a true partnership within the district to go shoulder to shoulder with what we think at that foundation is most important, which is the well-being of MPS, our public schools. As you know, the lift is huge. Y'all face it every day in converting schools that are underperforming all at once. But that's what a conversion school is all about. Same students in the same school. If they're zoned for the school before it converts, they're still zoned after it converts. They're guaranteed a seat at every school. So I just kind of want to get those basics down. And I also just want to say a couple things about the partnership and thanking Dr. Brown for his leadership as he's come in new. And this is something that was new on his in his portfolio. And we are grateful and appreciate the work that you've been doing and the support from central office. I'm going to highlight Dr. Nettles, but the rest of the team is sitting over there with Dr. Williamson, Ms. Gillis, Mr. Watts, the incredible group that we interact with sometimes daily, certainly monthly, a lot of times weekly. This has been a learning experience and continues to be. So we've learned getting started. So let me just make sure everybody understands. This is the first conversion schools in the state of Alabama. So MPS is charting new ground. It is one of many opportunities for school systems to use. It is not the solution, but it's one of many opportunities to help as we get all of our students and all of our schools where we want them to be, where we know our students are capable of. So that's just a little bit of background. Briefly, to give you a snapshot, I wanted to have you look at the first page. Again, I've listed the principals for you. I just wanted to note the enrollment, and you'll see this later. Davis, at the year end, we were up to 518. That's almost 53 students increase since we converted that school. Nixon, in 1 year, has had an increase of almost 59 students. And Bellingrath is roughly still status quo. It may be down about 15, but we really expect that. That bubble kind of tends to, we saw this year how those figures went. What we saw coming in was very different, much lower than what ultimately it ended up being. So that just gives you a little bit of a snapshot. Looking at performance and data, this is really very early. So, and the reason why I say that for two reasons. One, none of us have all of our data yet. So ACAP, I can't do comparisons for you yet. And I look forward to coming back with a full data presentation, which I think will be helpful. But I wanted to at least go over some of the baselines and give you some perspective on the schools. And where we do have some baseline and performance data, I'm going to go through that. So the second page is just a quick snapshot of the economic status of the three schools. The district is a 73% free and reduced lunch. All of our schools are above 80%, almost 90%, so they are no less economically advantaged than, or more economically advantaged than the average or the majority of your schools in the system. The average daily membership this past year, as y'all all know, unfortunately we had a decrease in the district, but we had an increase at each of the conversion schools, and we really are fighting hard for that. Every student we keep or attract in new, Mr. Watts, you can probably give the exact dollar figure, but it has a dollar figure that goes with it in funding for MPS, and that's what we've got to keep increasing because we all know the urgency of that. The next page I put in here because these are the things that we start looking at is some baselines of culture and climate, of kind of the well-being of students and where we are and the first things that are tackled. So from the discipline standpoint, it's a very spotty, and if you'll start looking where you see blue, Those are the boxes that are going to need to start being filled in as we get the data so we can compare, because those are where we are actually have converted the school. So for Davis, it's 2022, and you have some real data there. Now, this is versus the 150 decrease there is versus 2019, and you might ask why not the previous year? Remember, we had 2 years of COVID, and that data is really not of much significance. That really does not give us much baseline. So going back to prior to COVID, 290, with the decrease down to 40. And that really speaks to the commitment of the culture and environment of establishing accountability for both students and the adults in the building, and using PBIS and other experiences. Nixon, of course, we don't have the info, but you can just see a little bit of the track. You can see Bellingrath, which has tended to run high. As many of our middle schools, we all know that's a challenge, but again, we don't have those final numbers yet. And I do look forward to bringing those back. But I also wanted to tell you kind of some of these things you don't always think about looking at in addition to your academic data, because they're important trends to pay attention to. The next page, very quickly, is the ELA ACAP data, the top graph running across the blue and the yellow. Again, we don't have much to fill in there, but I can give you comparison for Davis. So Davis in 2022, ACAP data in ELA, English Language Arts, had 16.5% proficient versus 12.5 the year before, a 4% change. And in math, we had 0% the year before we took over, and the year that we converted, 2.9%. Nothing to write home about and set the world on fire, but we want to maintain flat and then start seeing the increase. The first year or two of a conversion school within this kind of process is about establishing that solid core of expectations, about implementing new routines, the culture environment, so that, because if we don't have students there, if we don't have our behaviors and expectations aligned, if we don't have every adult with high expectations in addition to students, the academics will never come. So that first year or two really is, we're looking for basically a flat with modest increase coming. You start seeing a year 3 is where you'll see more of an increase. The next chart down below, and you'll see next, and you can see where they were. Their ELA proficiency last year was 9.8, very low. As a matter of fact, unfortunately, it was the lowest in the state, I believe, or I think that was the reading, sorry, not the ELA. And Bellingrath was 11.7, and then over on math, in 2022, Nixon was 3.3, and then Bellingrath 0.81 proficiency in math. None of us are pleased with that, and we're going to not be pleased till we make big differences in that. The next thing, if you look down, is the reading scores. That is the only thing that we do have comparisons for 22 and 23. Those scores have been released. And let me just, for everyone understanding, ELA is English Language Arts, which wraps both the writing, the grammar, as well as the reading all together. Reading is strictly the reading exam, which we're using for the ARI and the reading progression, you know, with third grade measurement and all. So what you're going to see is in 2022, Davis had a 32.91, and then we did drop by 1.8%, minimal but, to a 31.08, and then Nixon had a 4.18 drop. I'm sorry, they had a drop. Both of these, just to put in perspective, as a district, the total drop was a 10.73% drop. And I know that all of us are concerned about this, so I know we're all probably having some of the same conversations. I do want to acknowledge, and not as an excuse at all, but so that we kind of help us direct where we're looking. This year, the reading exam was the first time that it had been implemented with the 2021 standards had been implemented, that the test itself was aligned. So more than likely it was more, if not quite a bit more rigorous than last year's test was. Not an excuse, we'll get there, but it certainly makes us look carefully at the alignment with standards. It's the first place to go, and I know this team has had many meetings working on that. The last thing that I'd like to do is simply point out that conversion is a partnership. It is all of us working together. I am grateful from the standpoint from MEF's board to be in this work with you. I'm grateful to Phelan Leadership Academies that we selected nationally and recruited and were able to attract to this work. That is what they specialize in, is conversion work. Not many people are willing or successful at doing that. We found, I think, the top in the country, and we're very pleased with what we see so far. The other thing that I left you with is that you should all have the Bellingrath yearbook, which is the first one in 10 years. And so, Dr. Holloway, I just want to applaud the effort there, as they were working certainly very hard to create some new traditions and bring back old traditions and move that forward. Lastly, in your package is financial information. So again, let me say this. This is unaudited for FY22, year-end FY22. The audits are being completed as we speak. Ours come a little bit later, so those will be coming very shortly. So these are unaudited. You see PLA financials, both balance sheet and their profit and loss, and you see MEF's financials with profit and loss and balance sheet. We are intertwined, and so even our audits will all be intertwined. It's a little bit complicated, but not terribly. Just so you know, all monies that come from state and federal pass straight through MEF. We're the contract holder, the charter contract holder, and is 100% put into PLA directly to the schools, which is accounted back to Mr. Watts for each one of those expenditures, just like you would here for any of your schools, for your other schools. So I'm going to ask questions first, and then Mr. Anderson, as our regional director, may have a couple of words to finish. Is there any questions that anybody would like to ask?
Thank you, Mrs. Sykes. Are there questions of Mrs. Sykes?
Ms. Cloud?
Yes, thank you. I have just two.
Sure.
I know you put the discipline, but I'd like to see the attendance for both students and teachers, because if they're not sitting in their desk and the teachers
Absolutely.
are not at the front, then
Right.
we're losing ground. Also, do you have a special needs population?
Oh, yes, we do. So can you quantify at the three schools roughly the special needs population?
Roughly, we serve about 100 scholars, and that's the total population.
Between three schools, approximately 100.
And do you get those funding sources from,
They come through,
okay, want to make
everything
sure of
comes
that.
through. Yes.
And
That's-
your list, the other question is, you have the English language arts and the math, you've got it for the elementary schools, but we know that Bellingrath still needs to be looked to for reading. Do you have that information?
They don't take the reading test separately.
I know,
They-
but do you have anything that you use to help?
We certainly do, and I can pull some of that, because we do NWA testing throughout, in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year, for each of
Because
those.
we
So
know if they get to middle school,
Oh, I
it's
know.
harder for them to engage when they can't.
Absolutely. And you
That
do
we-
understand that Davis and Nixon feed 100% to Bellingrath, so the ripple that we hope, again, will start being compounded to advantage as we have more students starting earlier and coming through the whole process, which is the goal.
In those younger years, we learn to read, and then in the middle years, we read
Read
to
to
learn.
learn.
So that's, thank you.
Attendance is in above 90%, around 95, and that's one key figure. The other one I will tell you, and I'll be very open with you, is the chronic absenteeism, which is not good.
I was
And
gonna-
that's another hot item that we are very much working on and looking for solutions, because if they're not there, it doesn't matter. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions?
When do you expect us to get more data as to, because these schools really are,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a little disappointed because I was really kind of excited to see, charter. One of the things I wanna ask is, if we could get some information on the retention rate of teachers,
We've
for,
got almost 100%, 87%,
It's
right
right around 87.
around 87%, yes.
I'm sorry, what was that?
87% retention,
thank
we've been very
Teacher
pleased.
retention rate.
Teacher
Right.
retention.
have you kept the same principal?
Yes, the first change was this year. Mr. Kirkland is stepping in as Ms. Anderson steps up as regional director, which is a really critical role of working with all three schools, keeping everything aligned, because one is not operating separately from the other in the standpoint of what informs for each student and how they're going to matriculate to the
And
middle.
one other thing, what do you think, if you had to come up with one thing, because your discipline report is excellent, I know you said we can't totally go by it, but you have really decreased,
Yeah,
so I was pleased to see that.
yeah.
What have y'all done to decrease
I'm going to
that?
celebrate Ms. Anderson because she owns that win.
First of all, Thank you, Superintendent Brown, Madam Chair, members of the board, for the opportunity to speak before you. In response to your question, PLA, which stands for Phelan Leadership Academies, really takes an intentional approach to scholar supports and discipline. We believe, as the board member Cloud just said, if boys and girls are not at school, they're not able to learn. So out-of-school suspension is a last resort. We seek to provide wraparound services for our boys and girls, restorative justice conversations, and quite a bit of PBIS supports to ensure that boys and girls understand that they are of value, they have something positively to contribute. Now we need to have a redirection conversation about your behavior, but we want you here in the building. So that's a sustained effort with our culture climate specialist that's housed at each of our schools, work with our counseling department, work with other organizations such as MPS's behavior interventionist, Helping Montgomery Families Initiative, all working together to support scholars with their behavior choices. You're welcome.
One thing I will add is there's an equal side to what our expectation with our scholars are for behavior and interactions and positive, and it goes the other side to the adults in the building, to the teachers, and they also are being measured with Kick Forward as far as those interactions, the amount of positive interactions, the ability to have conversations with teachers to help them keep focused on the restorative side and how we interact rather than going from 0 to 100 and a kid is out. That's none of us, it's not the way we want to handle it. So.
I'm glad
Thank you.
Because I compare charters, I really do, and I know we did that, or, you know, the other one that was not a conversion, I think has had one every year.
The same crew is here. As a matter of fact, Mr. Merriweather was instructional coach at Davis and promoted over to Nixon this year. So we have actual leadership development within there's a principal in residence program also. So there's a lot of developing leadership within, and it gives pathways for our teachers, which is really important.
Thank you. Ms. Smith.
Yes, I had a question. It's good to hear about the wraparound services and the restorative justice practices. However, I think most of us have taught in schools, and we know there are some extreme cases, and especially when you bring up your SPED kids, I know that sometimes there's a behavior associated with that. So in those extreme cases where a SPED child may need to have an alternative placement, how do you all handle that? What's your process for that? Or what does that look like?
So right now, we're actually working how we develop this next year. Remember, I told you this is a journey as we figure out how we do different partnership sharing between the district and between the schools. So this past year, for the first half of the year, the students were allowed to attend McIntyre for alternative, for those extreme. We are in the process of discussing, the second half of the year, no, but we are in the process of discussing what and how that should be handled. There has to be an alternative. Absolutely, you know that, for safety of the students, safety of the student themselves, and also other students in many cases. So that's being developed. That's in process as part of our journey right now. But as far as you were talking about in general or just for SPED students?
Well, my question was for SPED students, but if you
Okay.
want to answer in general, that's fine.
Well, as far as Dr. Holloway, would you like to maybe answer from a SPED standpoint?
Yes, from a special education standpoint, of course, we have aligned with the district as to what the guidelines are for handling all special ed cases when those behaviors present themselves, when they are exhibited with students. However, we take special note of what the guidelines are in the IEP as well as communicating with the SEF and the behavior interventionists to make sure that we pay close attention to the needs of that student and do what's best for that child.
As part of our contract is, especially on SPED, is the total partnership between us and the district for the services, because it's to both the district and our benefits that SPED is handled in that more holistic and wraparound, make sure that we're compliant and that we're being monitoring efficiently and effectively. And so that's another piece of that. That's helpful.
So when there is a change of placement, the parents, and it's an alternative setting, the parents are okay with having that placement change?
We have to go through all those steps
Oh,
of everything that's required. I mean, first a manifestation hearing, or evaluation, all the pieces before we'd even get, I don't believe, do we have any students that even went to alternative?
We had, one special ed student to go to alternative like you.
Yeah, for the whole year. So that was this past year, but very high on our radar.
When you say behavioral interventionist, is that the BCBA, Ms. Jackson, or is that someone else from MPS?
Well, one of the things that, from our founder, Mr. Phelan, wants to ensure that all of our boys and girls have an opportunity to learn every day, because every day counts. So to that end, our network has the role of a behavior specialist that is at each of our schools. And that person is trained to support students, catch them in classrooms, provide support in classrooms so that students stay. The behavior interventionist at all 3 schools also has full access to parent phone calls. So lots of phone calls go home to parents so that we can again be in constant communication about what's best for the student and how the student is performing and how that behavior affects academics.
So this is a separate piece from MPS, even though we dovetail, this is something
That
that's
is
strictly.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there additional questions?
Dr. Keith, I just want to make one last point for you in comparing the charter schools, because I know you're keeping an eye out and you do that so well. Conversion is very different than a startup. A startup usually starts with like 1, 2, or 3 grades, and then they add a grade each year. And the students come from many different places. So you create your culture and climate immediately day one. It's a very different start. A conversion is tough work y'all do every day. A conversion is the same students that were there last year or this year, all 5 grades at elementary, all 3 grades at middle. So you don't have this kind of stepping up and able to add in. And that's not a negative towards the startup. It's just though an important difference to understand in conversion work. So no, we
Well,
expect to see increases, but
The
as I
startup
said,
we have here, which I was so gung-ho about, this is their year.
Yeah,
They are,
yeah.
they're, whether they make it or not.
sure.
And I'm seeing, not so good things,
Sure.
Things, and it's just, some of the things that I've watched it go through, because I am interested.
Sure.
I've been to Tennessee, I've been to Atlanta to look at some of these things, and this is a personal opinion, I just think when you are switching, from principal to principal,
Right.
I just have, concerns.
Well,
So your
we're not, and we're
Okay.
excited about it. Sorry.
So your conversion is like 50% of new faculty and staff, and then you have a new leader. It should have.
Davis was 100%. We offer and look for any employee that would like to apply to stay. Remember, it was during COVID and a lot of stress and anxiety and angst, and we're the first, and who knew what things were going to be, as far as many things circulating in the community about what people thought it might be. So Davis started from scratch, literally. Nixon and Bellingraph kept 3 at Nixon and 7 at Bellingraph.
Thank you. I
Okay.
just wanted that clear for everyone, because the more we know, the more we can
Sure.
support.
Thank
Please,
you.
We're data nerds, whatever y'all want, and we would love to come back once we all have a lot more data, because I think those are really rich conversations and important.
Thanks again. We appreciate you. At this time, we are looking for a presentation from a professional development agreement or regarding a professional development agreement amendment. It's not Dr. James, Dr. Williamson.
Good evening. I'm standing in for Dr. James this evening. There's a proposal for an amendment to our partnership agreement with Pathway Counseling Services. We brought Pathway into the district about 4 years ago. The difference with Pathway from any of the other partners that we have, they have a high percentage of male counselors that they are able to partner with our children. In addition to that, Pathway has a home and school connection for our students. Over the past years, the utilization of Pathway has steadily increased. This past school year, Pathway is up to 53 referrals across the district in 9 schools. We had that agreement capped at $75,000. We are about to exceed that, and we are asking that that agreement be extended for the additional $5,000 that's needed to continue this school year as we continue to provide those services to children and families.
Thank you. Are there questions of Dr. Williamson?
May I just
Yes,
ask one thing,
Ms.
please?
Cloud.
Thank you. You have a list of students here with their names.
I did not share that.
I know, it's,
Okay.
no, it's here with us.
Okay.
You might wanna
I'll be sure to talk with them.
Just
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be much better.
Absolutely. I
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I had
Yes.
a question. I just wanted to know, I was looking at how they offer their services, and one of it was they see clients once a week for individual counseling sessions, and I was interested to know how they do the group setting. I see they have and I know you may not know but if you can just relay the message, I guess,
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
But that was something that I had a question about, the group counseling sessions. How often are those provided? And also, what schools they were servicing. I was wondering where they were. If you know that, I don't know.
Yes, ma'am, I do. And it's actually, if you have that listing with the students, it also identifies the schools where those children are. But yes, ma'am, I can work with Dr. James to give you a separate report that identifies the 9 schools that the 53 children come from for this past school year. And I can work with Pathway to give you information about what their small group structure looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is this behavior or just, what kind of counseling? Just a generalized, what kind of counseling?
It's across the board. You have some children that have academic needs. You have some children that are receiving counseling because of grief and loss. We have some children that have diagnoses and need additional counseling to help them manage their emotions and be more successful during school. You will also see that we have some children that have specific diagnoses that impact being in the classroom, such as ADHD. They work with children to work on the behavioral aspect of that so that they have compensation strategies to help them in the classroom.
And is there a process to identify the students that go into this pathways? I mean, what's the protocol? Like at one of these 9 schools, what's the procedure to get them in place here?
So the school teams use this referral process mirrors the referral process for any of our other services.
Okay,
The school team is able to identify children that need both that school-home connection based on the specific needs of the child to determine when Pathway is more appropriate than some of the other offerings that we have.
does this work together with HMF?
Actually, no. We brought Pathway in separate from HMFI. It started in the district as a pilot at at Brubaker Middle and Capitol Heights, and it has grown from there.
Thank you.
And Dr. Williamson, whatever that conversation between you and Dr. James looks like, we respect and appreciate that, but I would like to say, since we are in a public forum, that information that you all share with us, we expect that we will maintain a level of confidentiality. So this information for us is legal and fine. We just don't want it to get out to the public. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, were there other questions of Dr. Williamson? I apologize. Thank you, Dr. Williamson. And yes, at this time, we are looking for our facilities update, Mr. Chad Anderson.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Dr. Brown, Dr. Coleman, Ms. Brown, and members of the board. If you'll look at your spreadsheet with me, I'll go through those list of projects that are ongoing. The Volker Capital Project, you received that earlier. The central office consolidation is going well. I will share a surprise. I know Dr. Brown doesn't like surprises, but this is a good one. Got a good, got an email from our furniture vendor. Furniture will be installed on the 24th for Building C, so we'll be able to start moving forward and there. And then we'll also have the final inspection scheduled for next week. So we're getting very close there. I get lots of questions, and text and emails and calls, so we'll start coordinating with the cabinet members and Dr. Brown to process that move over to the new location with that. So the contractor met with the city this week to look at the binder layer of asphalt. With the rain, we've had some grading that's been degraded a little bit on that side, so we're working through that to get that set up, but we're very close to get the binder layer on that east side of the parking lot. We're about 95% through with the landscaping on the west side, and then just minor touch-ups and little things there that we have to contend with in that 3-story building, but everything is going well there. So hope that was a good surprise, Dr. Brown. The BTW construction update. If you've driven by there in the last few days, more site work and all continues. We're just about finished with the concrete work. They finished the apron up front, and they're starting to get ready for the final wearing surface on the asphalt, and they say that'll take about 7 days for the asphalt and the striping to get that complete. Minor things are going on in the black box and Magnet Arts, and you see there we have the final inspection scheduled for the 27th. The state inspector asked us to do it like this. We were trying to break up the Magnet Arts and black box and do those differently. He asked us to combine everything into one for that final inspection for the main part of it. We'll come back about a week or so later and do the gymnasium after that, but we will, once we get that and completed in the final inspection, we'll be able to process and move our people into that. Ongoing, we're putting furniture in there now. With their furniture, we broke the furniture up into several vendors, and we did that because there were so many vendors that reached out when the school burned and provided things to them, so we tried to share the wealth. That's a little bit different than what you typically do with that, but we broke it up into certain areas. They're ready to go. A lot of the cafeteria furniture is already there. They're just waiting to complete some of the installation with the seat tops and all. Your kitchen equipment and all of that is installed and ready to go. They're ready to test that along with the final inspection as well. The flooring is wrapping up in all of the areas, so we're in pretty good shape there. You've got your second and third coats going on of paint in all of the areas, so most of that is done. And then, you know, there's minor things in the core curriculum. We feel really good. We've got to really push hard. The architects are there daily now, you know, staying on top of making sure we're getting ready for final inspection. Final inspection has to deal with life safety, so they'll be testing like the fire alarm and the locking mechanisms, your card access. That wrapped up last week, so our folks helped with that part of it. That was part of our deal on the contract, so we have most of that completed. Little odds and ends are a couple of doors that they have to install that we're there, but we're right there on the neck of it, and just staying with Dr. Starks, keeping her apprised of it and getting ready to move in there and start a school year. The red light, which I had that down the way a little bit, but I'll go on and kind of preface that with this. Again, spoke to the vendor last week, or the contractor last week. They're ready to go. Again, they're waiting on a few little odds and ends. It's not like constructing a building. It'll go relatively quick, but we've been working with MPS security, and they'll be coordinating if we have to have something out there for traffic morning and afternoon to get our folks in and out safely. MPS security, we do that all the time in our district, so they'll be ready for that as well if that is needed. The gym floor is down. We're waiting on that to be painted. They put the weight room floor in, so most of that is completed. And then the vinyl surface around the outside edge. We couldn't go in the middle and do that regular gym floor until the vinyl surface had cured for a certain amount of time. So that's done. They're getting ready to start sanding and putting the striping and all down on the gym floor. So everything is looking good in that area, and we'll keep giving you a weekly update. You'll see that this Friday as well. The Goodwin HVAC project, if you've been by there, it is flying. I mean, they are doing a fantastic job and are ahead of schedule of what they had anticipated for the summer. So I feel like they'll finish that front facade here in the next probably 2 weeks and get us in a good place. They really wanted to get through all the way to the front so that they didn't have lifts and booms on the front side of the building with kids trying to come into the building during school and those phases. Once that's complete, they'll jump into some critical areas in the courtyard and start working their way around the courtyard and the back of the building, and that's what we lack, just one side of the courtyard and the back of the building and that. So they've done an excellent job and continuing to work forward with that, and excited about finishing that project. Brewtech HVAC remains on schedule and hopefully finishes prior to the start of school. Vaughn Road re-roof, if you've been by there, there's a ton of material there, and they'll get started here shortly. The Wares Ferry re-roof, same contractor, they'll start immediately after that. J.D. Danley roof replacement. Cafeteria should be completed as far as the surface. They may be still doing some metal. I have not been by there this week. As of Friday when I went by there, they didn't have the metal flashing around the side of it yet. Brubaker Intermediate HVAC is rocking along and got a ton of the ceiling grid and lighting done on the inside, and they really are pushing to have that finished prior to the start of school. We're looking like we should be fine there. And then again, when they start on the inside, they'll bring in portables for the areas that are affected, and it's about a 2 to 3 week installation and start up for those areas. So each area, when they phase it around the inside, they'll have those portables, and it'll be a 2 to 3 week lead time for the next group to come in. Again, the mechanical rooms are located mostly on the outside of the building, so the contractors won't be interacting, going in and out of the building a lot for any kind of major thing. There are 2 large mechanical rooms in the building. They're working on those this summer right now, and hopefully we'll have at least one. I'm hoping 2 will be completed prior to that. The traffic light we spoke about, Carver High School 9th grade academy, you see the fencing up. We should be commencing with site work any day. And then a couple of the contracts that we have later down on the list, I'll go on and go over the Brubaker primary HVAC renovation. Same installation basically as Brubaker Intermediate. Good thing about this contract is it's the same vendor that's doing the intermediate, and so they'll be right there and be able to coordinate that and keep moving along. And again, it's drop ceiling, lighting, HVAC, and then later on this year, hopefully early this fall, we'll be adding in the roofing contract for that location as well, and we'll replace the roofing and soffit around that building that's damaged with that. The last piece there is the district-wide camera upgrade and camera platform upgrade. That's something that IT and security have been working on together. They settled on a platform, a Vigilon, to upgrade our school system. Our current system's roughly 15 to 20 years old, so we're a little outdated with that. The Vigilon system will definitely take us to the next level. That is the camera system we put into BTW. They'll also integrate our cameras that we've upgraded in the last recent 3 or 4 years that are IP-based cameras. They'll integrate those into the platform as well and give us AI technology. So very cool stuff. It'll be able to take a still or so of a face or someone and then track that person wherever they are. So if we had an intruder in a building or somebody that was not supposed to be on campus, we can put that into the system. It'll help us locate those. Much safer platform, much more integrated to mobile devices and things that move with us, and something that'll take us to the next level on that. The 800 cameras that'll go along with that is for that ones that IT and security have looked at on our system that need to be upgraded to be able to fit to the platform. We still had some that were kind of old and would not integrate with that type of technology. So.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I do know we have one question, Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Will BTW be ready?
That's my plan. Yes, ma'am.
Because I hear these dates.
Yes.
And I'm getting very nervous.
Yes, ma'am.
About these dates.
We're meeting weekly with it now with our OAC meetings, and again, the architects are out there daily. The contractors have not given us anything that would indicate that would hold us up from this July 27th date. So it's going to be tight, but we're working alongside it, and like we'll have furniture installed ready to go after that very shortly. So some of the things that you would do after that inspection, we're trying to get ahead of now so that it's more of a seamless transition, but it's tight, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because I know that things, unforeseen things
Yes, ma'am.
can happen.
Yes, ma'am.
So if those things come up, we're just prepared to open school in the regular way.
We're gonna work with Dr. Starks and figure out the best kind of method if something or unforeseen were to happen like that. I think Dr. Brown may be wanting to jump in here.
I'm just gonna say he's hearing from me every day.
Would it help if I call?
There's two
It's
words.
It's pretty
there's-
loud.
Brown and Brown.
I'm at a kids camp with my son. I came back tonight for the contracts and all to get this done and work through the day, but Dr. Brown they're gonna have the pleasure of Dr. Brown at the OAC meeting tomorrow, so I told him to give them some dirty looks and some
I'm very
stern
pleasant
words.
in meetings like that, so.
I'll have a meeting with him before he has that meeting.
There are two words in his vocabulary that I keep hearing, not acceptable, so.
Okay.
And that's being expressed to them.
Because, we're
Yes.
really running down to the wire.
Yes, ma'am. It's pretty much complete on the inside. If you go through the building, it's pretty much complete. Now, they're gonna have a punch list, and I don't care if the punch list
Yeah,
takes them until next year to
Yeah.
do, but we want in that building, and they're gonna work around us and not us work around them. So
Right.
we're gonna make sure that everything gets done. Our architects are staying on top of them, and we're staying on top of them. And I probably wasn't the nicest to them last week, but,
Good.
Now, as far as our safety issues, if
Yes, ma'am.
those are addressed,
Right.
we're going to be happy. We want the building to be functional.
yes.
And we all know that there are nights when some of us will have to roll up our sleeves and pitch in. We don't want it to happen, but we do know that we have a team that's ready to move.
Yes,
So-
ma'am. And we have some maintenance guys that are currently right now working on furniture. They're spending overtime to try to come in and do things after hours, keeping up their regular stuff that's going on and all with that as well. So we're doing everything we can with that part. Logistics is moving stuff daily. We purchased some of their items through the insurance money. Had some contents and EDP money that had to be spent through the school, so like teacher desk and things like that. But the student desk, the office furniture in the main office, the cafeteria furniture, that's all a vendor, and they will set all of that up for us, and they'll do it very quickly.
Are there other questions? Yes, Ms.
Yeah.
Smith?
You pretty much answered a lot of them, but it's a very simple question I'm gonna ask you. As far as the work with the construction companies and the architect, is that a 7-day-a-week type situation? Because I know weather gets in the ways, but you still have to keep the train moving. So is it every day that they're out there, or?
It's pretty much, there's somebody out there most 7 days a week. I know at least 6 days a week. There are some things that just can't be done over, like when there's weather or this or that, like the
Right.
outside work. So that's why I'm really pushing to get that asphalt and concrete work done. The other stuff that's on the inside can be done on Saturday or Sunday. And I know they've done site work on the weekends. The flooring crews have been working like on the gymnasium on the weekends. They've got a flooring group in there doing some final touch-ups on some things now. I'm sure they'll be 7 days a week. So certain trades are 7 days a week, and some are more caught up, and they don't have to be as on top of it like that. But we're very close on it. So
Yeah, I was like,
Dr. Keith?
I didn't see her.
This is old. Did we ever pave Capitol Heights, like the parking lot?
no, the only parking lot they really have is the community center that
Yeah,
they
but
own.
where they had all those check holes. Because I was wondering, when I saw these ESSER funds, I was like, why can't we use ESSER funds to do that?
Yeah, you can't
can't?
use the ESSER funds to do that part of it, but that's part of the city's stuff, and they're gonna, they own that part of it or run that part of it.
Okay.
And I think they were wanting to do some stuff on the back. The front circle is concrete, so they won't pave that, and then we're working on getting out of there, so, with a new plan, but yes, ma'am. And I think you've probably seen some parking lots being done around the district, Carver Elementary, Halcyon. They did
South Lawn.
South Lawns, both the South Lawns, and then they have done some stuff over at Union Street over here too, but Halcyon, they were really trying to focus on the west side right now, but they were at Halcyon working on something else. So they called and asked, and I'm not gonna hold them up and stop them, so they did a great job on that one as well.
And I have
Okay.
one, oh, no,
Mi-
it was you, I'm sorry.
Miss Cloud.
Jumping ahead.
I was just gonna say, I know we're pushing because it's so important to us, but we know how hard you're working and how much you're getting them to push, but we don't want any side cuts or anything yet, so if we just get it ready, we want it to be good and
I,
right.
I feel really good. We have a really good state inspector that works our area, and he does not let anything slip. I mean, the inspection for the two-story building, the overhead inspection was 4 hours the other day with no air conditioning. I mean, it was hot, and he made sure he was checking grommets on piping and different things. I mean, he did not let anything slip. And I know, especially on this, when you're talking about final inspection for life safety, he's not gonna compromise anything on that. If there's anything that would cause them to fail, he's not gonna give them okay, I'm gonna give it to you. They're gonna have to come back and reschedule it.
Ms. Smith, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, just one last question. This is dealing with just the exterior of the schools. Some of our buildings need pressure washing, and I know that's so minuscule and off topic, but will there be a plan to just kind of help them to be refreshed and welcoming for the first day of school?
We met with a vendor today, a group called Echo Mold Go. Was introduced to them a while back by John Lee Paints, our paint contractor. This is a product that you spray on, and the sun and the rain do the work. I'll share it with you in some pictures this week on the weekly update.
Thank you.
The person that created this, chemical engineer with a PhD in chemistry, he came up today and met with our maintenance people concerning this project that we're trying to go towards on. It's an undertaking. I mean, he kind of got an idea of how large we are, but they're at places like ASU, Troy right now, CAC. They're working on some on the west side. I think the city of Montgomery is looking at doing a little bit with them. First Baptist here in Montgomery is going to work with them as well. A lot of colleges and all, and so we're gonna do some hot spots this year and try to get that in the next couple of weeks, and then we're gonna get a full comprehensive plan to go. But the beauty of this thing, where pressure washing lasts 3 to 6 months, this lasts 3 to 4 years. And then the application is just spray it back on every 3 to 4 years. So I want to do something more permanent. I've been in districts where they did pressure washing every summer. It eats away your concrete, so that's a problem and causes issues with that. And we want to do something more permanent and that's going to be more eco-friendly as well. When you're talking about one pressure washer in one day, uses about 30,000 gallons of water. So that we can do a whole school for less than that with this product here. So we're excited about it. It's been around for about 13 years. The guy is very sharp. I really liked how he came up and demonstrated it for our folks. When we start to apply this product, they're going to come back up with us and make sure that we're doing it well. And then there are some vendors that they can help us bring in that work with them that can knock out this in a quick amount of time for the entire district, because we have a ton of brick, and I'm not talking about just the concrete sidewalks. I'm talking about the brick on the building, the ephes that you see that's got mold and algae growing off of it. We're talking about an entire comprehensive plan with that.
In mid-June, Mr. Anderson and I talked about that as the same question you asked, so make sure we got that taken care of.
Thank you.
Great.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Did you want to move ahead, or who's handling the HVAC contract?
He already did. He
I
did.
mentioned that in the update, but yes, ma'am,
Okay.
it's the same, it's a low bid contract with the same vendor that's doing Brew Intermediate right now.
Right.
And we'd like to move forward on that. We have some ESSER funding that will take care of a large portion of it, and then this year's ATF allocation will help us finish that out.
Okay, thank you, and I did see it on the other report, but
Yes,
since
ma'am.
it was an item here, I
Yes,
thought I
ma'am, I
needed to
appreciate it.
address it. Thank you.
I probably jumped ahead.
No problem at all. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. At this time, our next couple of presentations are going to be policy-related. We'll hear them and take questions and discussions one at a time. At this time, we're going to look at the updated sex offense policy from Dr. Williamson.
Good evening again. We have a board policy around sex offender, anyone who has sex offender status, and what the implications are when they come on campus, which is that they have to notify the principal and that there are specific safety precautions that we utilize so that they are monitored, they are not left unsupervised around students, and they're there for a very specific purpose, like their child is in a program or they need to have a teacher meeting. The only adjustment that we're asking for this policy is that we extend our safety protocol to be applied to anyone that has a sex offender status. So that would be when you go through Raptor and it comes up that that person has a sex offender status, and let me back up. The policy that we have from the state is around sex offender status pertaining to a youth. I'm asking that the board consider that we update our policy, not only to have those safety protocols in place when a person has a sex offender status with a youth, but if they have a sex offender status at all and they're coming on our campus. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. There are questions,
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
So not only are you proposing this addition, you are also proposing a change in the wording for the section. It will not just be for adults, right?
I'm leaving our 4.1.3 as it is in the policy and asking that we add an addendum to that in closing it out, that the procedures that we utilize when a person has a sex offender status pertaining to a youth are the same safety protocols that we utilize if they have a sex offender status at all. Which is that because number one, it's going to come up in the Raptor system anyway. The principal, the front office will be notified at the point that their ID is scanned. Then we would use those same safety protocols with that person as we would any other person that has a sex offender status, which is that they are monitored in the building, they are supervised at all times, and the necessary, if they are participating in an activity for their child, the necessary folk know who that person is so that they can be monitored.
Okay, I get that. I absolutely get it. But if we are including any youth that could be considered a sex offender, that wording needs to be changed.
Wait, I'm sorry, say that again, because this is not pertaining to you.
Right, but you're saying anyone that has,
The status of sex offender, yes, ma'am.
okay,
Regardless of, the law 4.1.3 is what's passed to us from the State Department. It is what every school system is required to have in their board policy. And it is around when a person is identified as a sex offender with a youth, with a minor. And the safety protocols that we have to have in place at the point that they have to come on campus because they're a parent, they're a grandparent, they're coming to engage with their child at school.
okay.
I'm asking that those same safety protocols that we utilize if a person has a sex offender status pertaining to a youth, that we extend those safety protocols to be universal.
Okay.
If you have a sex offender status, period.
Period, okay.
These are the protocols that we implement when you're on campus.
Okay, I think I missed something.
And as advocates, if we think that at some point needs to be changed, we have to advocate for that at the
The
state.
state level.
Yes, that is directly as it's passed to us from
I
the State
got you.
Department.
Right, but it says adult sex offenders. Sometimes we have, an adult is considered anyone 18 and older, or 21 and older. What about those that are,
The students that are,
We have a whole different policy for students with youth offender status. It's further back. It's separate from this. It's actually connected to Anna Lynn's law. It just passed recently, and we have a whole different set of requirements that we have to follow in those situations.
And see, I was trying to tie the two.
That's what I was, I think that we.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be closely together if we're gonna do this. If we're gonna have it as ours, I know the state, we're going above this. We're taking the state and adding to, it says addition. I think we need to incorporate it all. Let's look, give us time to look at pop.
Okay, so in order to see the protocols that we use for youth sex offenders, you would have to see Anna Lynn's law, which is further back in our policy section.
Yeah.
Which requires not only the protocols, it requires a team, a plan,
Yeah.
the whole gamut when
Yeah.
there's a child involved with that status.
And you clarified it for me when
Thank
you said that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions? Other questions? All right, thank you. And your second one, the district electronic device policy, Dr. Williamson.
Yes, ma'am. So you see 6.21 is our current policy. Because we are excited about bringing on the Yonder pouches and the implementation of that in our secondary schools, we needed to update our policy slightly. So you see the recommendation is that we maintain what is in 6.21, but we add .1 that clearly defines what electronic devices are. We've updated that some so that it'll include smartwatches, it'll include earbuds, it'll include some of the things that weren't quite around when we originally developed the electronic device policy. We're also adding .2, which clarifies how the district will be using the magnetic pouches and that they will be required in those settings where they are being used on a daily basis, and students will be responsible for those, and that their electronic devices must be housed in that pouch daily per our protocols. And then .3 is the original verbiage that was attached to 6.21 that just covers our building administrators and makes it clear that if there's a need under very specific circumstances for a phone to be accessed and searched, we have the right to do so.
Thank
Okay.
you. Are there questions?
Yes, I have
Ms.
one.
Cloud?
It didn't occur to me, but I'm glad that it did. My brother is severely diabetic. He has a device on his arm. He has a pump, an insulin pump. He has to use his phone to gauge his blood sugar.
Yes, ma'am.
That is a very serious situation. These children, if they're on this, are children that have other medical needs. They don't need to have to go and have this phone unlocked. How are we going to approach that? And it needs to be in here.
It won't be in this part of the policy, it'll be in our procedures. And I did share with the board the procedures that we will be working with the school teams on, and Yonder actually will work with the school teams independently. But back to your question, Ms. Cloud, yes, that part has already been taken care of, because remember, teachers will have a portable magnetic device that will unlock the pouch. So for a child that's already been identified in their class that needs to access their phone, they'll be able to do so without any delay in time.
And also, the signal is different from a ringing telephone. So when that signal goes off, as a matter of fact, we have one sitting here that might start going off, all right? And if it does, it sounds very different from a phone ringing. And they would know at that point to unlock and see whether we're dealing with a high or a low, so.
Well, see, subs need to know that too.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just saying, you understand as well as my brother, when he pulled his out, I went, oh my gosh, this is something we really need to have some strong conversation about, because
I'm quite sure that they will have that in the training for the teachers, and they will know how to handle those specific situations, because a lot of things can happen, but, training for that is key.
And I think you did say that you've had those discussions and it's included in the policies.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I was
Our
gonna say,
procedures, yes, ma'am.
I mean, I'm excited about it, the whole thing, but like I said, that was something we didn't think about, and you know you're gonna have the naysayers, and if we have it in a policy where at least, I think it is, the more we have written, the less we're gonna have to answer.
explain.
So if we just said, hey, there will be a, little bullet, emergency cases, then that's, hey, it's in your handbook.
Because like I said, if a teacher knows and then there's a sub there, or they have to split classes, I'm concerned that it's about keeping our.
Oh, I understand, absolutely. Safety first, yes, ma'am.
And actually, there are gonna be issues that come up, and we are not gonna be able
That
to
we
deal with
haven't.
every scenario. So I think that we have to use discretion, and we have to address them, as they come up.
Yes, ma'am.
We're not gonna be able to address everything, because we're gonna learn something. When you print the policy, we're gonna learn something. And you're gonna have to come back to us and say, I wanna, change this policy or make an addition to the policy. And that should be understandable. We're not that rigid, but, it's nice to have the conversations so that we can be educated on the way that we're moving. And we have to accept it and move on.
And I did leave it general to cover all of these pieces, but as general as I could, so I don't have to continue to
Update.
come to you and pester you about the changes as we learn throughout this journey. But yes, ma'am, we will be even more specific with the procedures that are provided to the school teams.
Yeah.
Thank
Is this
you.
very similar to the Elmore County?
Yes,
district
ma'am,
policy?
it is. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanna say this, because it's the work session, it may be the wrong time to say, but I think it's the right time. I'm speaking for, Pam Portis and a couple other board members too on this, because, of course, I probably acted like a child when I heard about this. It's like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. I know 1440 Kevin Elkin was like, please, this is great. But after the fact, Pam Portis had, sent us where, kids are buying their own magnets and stuff like that. Well, and I'm not bringing that up to say, hey, that's gonna be a problem. It could be. The point I'm making is, a majority, I would think, or a good bit of your board members have expressed to me, about my excitement. I actually had a person that's running for city council to call me and freak out over it. We want on these policies at least, a couple weeks to think about it, other than just being given to us at a board meeting, and we go, hey, yep, let's do it. Because then when we do the let's do it and it's all over the news, we get the repercussions of the people out there going, what are y'all doing? Why'd y'all do that? And we just need time to be able to discuss that policy.
With this particular policy, just for context,
Yeah.
we just approved Yonder in June. So what many of these we're trying to adopt on the fly as quickly as possible, and working with Elmore County as a partner to do that. But that would be something I want as an expectation as well. That was also a rationale for Dr. Coleman trying to form a policy committee to help us go through some of ours in a more timely fashion, so to speak.
Thank you.
And
Ms.
one
Smith.
other thing, and again, you answered it, but since it is a work session and we do get to talk about it, I just wanted to express one of my concerns. I know we're not trying to be so regimented, however, when you do have subs, they don't always know. So that was, to me, a legitimate concern. And even when I think about SPED kids that have assistive technology, that come to school with iPads and iPhones that they use in the classroom, and I know that may be considered like an outlier type group, but if something can be said about that in the procedural part of it, that there will be some exceptions. Because what will happen is students will look at somebody else with a phone and not know why they have it, and say, well, they were allowed to bring their phone, why I can't have my phone? So just to kind of, and parents will sometimes grab hold to that and come and question as well. So if it can just, some of those little small details, I'm not saying make it so rigid, but just those small things can be said so that there's clarity and understanding.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Are there other questions regarding the policy? Okay. I noticed that you are still with us for two additional items. These are related to job postings. Again, we will take them one at a time, understanding that you do have two.
Okay, I'll start with the registered behavior technician. It is not a new job for us, but in the past, it was an add-on with some of our paras that were assigned to specific children. A registered behavior technician that's just that. It's an individual that has been specially certified in working with children with severe behavioral needs. We want to begin with the use of the RBT, as they're often called, in one of our specialized units. We want to be able to expand the use of RBTs to provide more assistance throughout the district. So when children have very specific behaviors and they are still assigned in a general ed classroom, but they need that additional support, we would have someone who is certified in working with one-on-one behavioral needs of students that can help that child in the classroom.
Thank you. Are there questions regarding the behavior technician job?
Yes.
Yes, Ms. Cloud.
How do they get registered to be a behavior? It says a registered behavior technician certified.
Yes, ma'am. There's an agency that provides this training. It is just as you go through specialized training to be CPR trained or to be the AED user in your building. There's a very specialized course and a test that these individuals must pass in order to be able to be identified as certified behavior techs.
So
Thank you.
This is not certified, this is classified, because they don't hold.
Right.
She means holding a certificate.
Yeah, but they're not certified, they're classified.
They're classified staff that hold a special certification. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, with that being said, it says provide follow-up training, support, modeling of behavior intervention plan strategies to teachers.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have a classified personnel training certified teachers.
Who is certified in behavior techniques. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an understanding. And it says assist the BCBA. There's only, that I know of, one BCBA in the district, and that's Katrina Jackson.
That's not Katrina Jackson. It's Jenny Underwood, and
Jenny
we also
Underwood.
have two now.
Okay, I was trying to find that. That
Yes,
was
ma'am.
Jenny Underwood. And
Yes,
who
ma'am.
else?
And Jaleesa Williams,
Thank
who
you.
is brand new to the district. Thank you, Mr. Wise.
And I had a similar question, though. Do you know how long that training is? And I'm just curious. When I saw this certification, I went, oh, that's,
Don't hold me to it, but I think it's like 40 hours of specialized training and testing and actual practicum. And even with their certification, we can't have RBTs in the district unless we have a BCBA in the district because they work directly under the
Okay.
supervision
Sort of like
of the
a registered
BCBA.
nurse and all the LPNs.
Yes.
It's under.
okay, a good analogy. Thank you.
And one of, were you finished before we
No,
move
go
on?
right ahead.
Just what schools will they be in? Are they gonna serve all of our schools? or
We're going to
serve-
start with the specialized behavior unit that I gave you information on. So those specialized units will be housed at South Lawn Elementary, South Lawn Middle, and Carver High School.
Is that a feeder?
It actually is a feeder pattern, yes, ma'am.
Thanks again. And now our school psychologist job.
Yes, ma'am. We're continuing to strengthen our arsenal to work with our children that need additional support socially, emotionally, as well as our children that have mental health diagnoses. We've had psychologists in the past due to attrition, folk retiring. It's just really difficult to get school psychologists at this point. We are down to one psychologist in the district. I think it is time, if the board says so, for us to be able to draw more psychologists into the district so that we can continue to meet the needs of our children with growing mental health concerns.
Okay. Questions regarding this posting, Ms. Cloud?
Yes, okay, I understand about school psychologists, I agree with you 100%, but current Alabama teacher certificate, ed specialist degree with an endorsement in school psychology, that would be like a counselor, a a psychologist has to go through hours of clinical training. I mean, hours and hours to get that psychology degree. How are we meshing the two? Because in here it says that they will do the evaluations for, psychological assessments. That concerns me because it takes someone that has those hours to do psychological assessments for our children. Now, counseling, our school counselors, I understand that, but this brings it to a more intense layer. And I understand you're trying to find people, I got that all day long, but we've got to make sure we're doing, why aren't we just looking for psychologists?
Well, this is actually the exact posting that we've used historically for our psychologists. And our psychologists are they're not just someone who took a few classes. They've actually completed the program. And Ms. Gillis, correct me if I'm wrong, the way it's listed in their certification is an endorsement.
And
Who
this
came
is a
up with
minimum.
Go ahead. Who came up with the salary? I would just think that I'm normally the one that wants to save money. That salary would not make me, I would fit this, and I'm like,
You heard that, Mr. Watts.
that's so litty bitty.
Mr.
Thinking the
Watts,
same thing.
Mr. Watts, you heard that? She said,
Shame on you.
Well, for,
If you've got a psychologist, they would need more than this because all their training and all their clinical,
and quite honestly, this is the starting salary. I
Thank
did not
you.
put the full salary scale on there. So keep in mind, according to their years of experience, their level of degrees,
Their degrees,
that
right.
salary will vary
it
greatly.
did say
Okay.
starting.
Starting.
how many are we looking to have?
We're looking to have two. I put 2 in my budget, and we are believing that 2 will manifest.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
I have
Additional
one question.
questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
Just one. We have one currently. This will make hopefully the second one for now. As far as their caseloads, they are gonna split it and serve all the schools as well.
Actually, this person that we bring in, we would be using them specifically for their psychologist background and those particular counseling and testing capabilities that they bring. When we had psychologists in the district in the past, they actually worked as psychometrists within our district, so they carried a load just as any of our other psychometrists. We're really looking at how we can maximize what we provide for children from a counseling and social, emotional, mental health perspective from a person who is a trained psychologist.
I was
So-
thinking that in my head, but.
Right, so what we did with Pathways guidance, we wanna do in-house.
Yes.
That's basically what we're doing.
Begin owning our,
That contracted service would now be a salaried in-house person.
yes, ma'am. When they manifest.
Thank you, and we are hoping for that. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Williamson.
Thank you.
The next presentation will be our May 2023 financial statement. Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Brown. The financial statement, I'm effective May 31st, 2023. Consists of the explanation of financial data, which is a brief discussion by the CFO as it relates to the district's financial standing, a snapshot analysis, which is a synopsis of our financial position, general fund balance recap, and this is a new report that we included in the financial statement, and I'll talk about that in just a second, but it's basically a breakdown of our general fund balance. A lot of times, we say we have a general fund balance of $80 or $90 million, but sometimes some of those monies are set aside for certain priorities. And so we want to list out exactly the amount that the district has in its local general fund. And I'll speak about that in just a second. Monthly budget percentages. Of course, we're in the 8th month of the fiscal year, which is about 66.67%. Monthly and annual comparative statement of revenues and expenditures. Pretty much a report that compares our month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures to our prior year month-to-date and year-to-date revenues and expenditures. Statement of cash flow, basically our cash received and cash paid out as of May 31st, 2023. Pie chart graph of those cash inflows and outflows, and a combined financial statements, which includes our balance sheet and income statement. If we return, Madam President, to the second tab, we would note that our total revenues in our general fund as of the month of May is almost $180 million. Total expenditures about $173 million, so we see an increase there. We also see our expenditures as a percent of our budget at about 71%. Again, I stated that as of the month of May, we're looking at, in a perfect world, to be about 66.67%. Of course, as you recall, we did transfer again $5 million from our general fund to our capital fund for capital replacement. These are expenditures that may come up: roof replacement, HVAC replacement, and those various things. So we'd like to have some money set aside for that in future years. We also set aside about $2 million out of our general fund into a technology replacement account. Of course, we'll have some technology needs. We want to continue our one-to-one initiative. There also may be some need for technology infrastructure, and so we want to have some money set aside for that as well. And of course, this is something that we don't have yet, but I've spoken with the superintendent about it already. At some point, we want to start setting aside some funds for security replacement. I think Chad just spoke about cameras, whether it's weapon detection systems or whatever. Then I think we need to set aside some money for something like that as well at some point. We've also transferred from our general fund to our capital fund about $6.7 million for the capital program, the VOCR capital program that we're doing right now. And of course, our general fund will be reimbursed for those expenditures as soon as we let the bonds for that particular project. Also in tab 3, which is the general fund balance recap, we would note that when we look at our local general fund, we see about $69 million. That is the amount that we currently have in our local general fund. Of course, our 1 month reserve is about $20.3, $20.4 million, so we still exceed the state requirement by at least 3 times what the state requires. Of course, last year, our local general fund was about right around $78 million, but of course, this year, as I stated, we transferred some monies out of our general fund into those replacement accounts, and that's something that we want to continue to do. In fact, as we end this fiscal year, we'd like to see what our fund balance is, and we'd like to make a recommendation to set aside some additional funds for capital replacement, some additional funds for technology replacement, some additional funds even for security replacement. We just want to be prepared that in the future years when the economy is not where it is now, that we will have money set aside to be able to meet the initiatives that will be faced in the upcoming years. You know, kind of like Joseph, years are plenty, then you want to set some aside, you know, so that's what we're trying to do there. Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watts. Are there questions of Mr. Watts regarding our financial statement?
Just a comment to kind of reiterate some things. It's going back to the psychologist. If we can really look at that pay scale, and I know the range, but if we can at least do a comparative study or some type of analysis to to make sure that we are able to bring, at least entice somebody to come here.
I'm sure Dr. Williams will be reminding both Ms. Gillis and myself. So we'll have a look at that.
Thank you again. The next item is our parental and family engagement policy. Dr. Brown.
Thank you, Madam President. The board asked us to take a look at our parental and family engagement policy to include some specifics from the national PTA standards. What we attempted to do with this draft, which is for first read tonight, is to merge pieces of the two so we can make sure we maintain the salient points from our current policy to upgrade it, if you will, with the components that were shared with us from the national PTA. That is, again, for your perusal, 4 weeks ahead of time for a potential vote, and we have some time to play with the language in there if necessary.
Sounds good. Are there questions regarding that? We'll take the time to look at it. All right, and the next item on the agenda is the Apogee Inc. Is that Dr. Brown? Thank you.
I want to thank the board for your indulgence in getting this contract on. I was under the impression that we had already done so, so please accept my apologies in that regard. This is for our website replacement. As you know, we're currently with one company, and that 3-year term is expiring at the end of, I believe it expires in October, if I'm not mistaken. This new contract would provide Apogee as our vendor for our website development, web design, and app development. We're very excited about this change. I know the board members expressed some concerns about the website some months ago, as did I, and I wanted to see us go in a different direction to create something that's far more engaging and interactive, that provides our parents and our community with a better access for information and pretty much a one-stop shop to find the information necessary to be successful in our district. This gives us an opportunity to do so. We'd love to get this launched ASAP. We're ready with metrics to launch as early as the end of this week, which is why I had some urgency in getting this on tonight, thinking I had already done so. So my apologies for that.
Thank you. Are there questions regarding this contract? Are there questions regarding Apogee? No questions? Thank you. We've completed the updates and informational items at this time.
No,
Are there-
one more. Oh, you weren't here. But, we added in to discuss the attorney, the board attorney, yes. The same.
Aren't they the same?
Yes, one and the same, the general
I'm just
counsel,
checking.
however we wanna word it. I did want, just to go back in history for a little while, when I first got on this board, we had an attorney, and through various actions, things happened. We're so happy we can hire superintendents and have wonderful CSFOs, but we're missing a piece, and that is the attorney. And with so many things happening, from contracts to personnel to other cases, and I know we have a law firm, but it would be very beneficial for us to have an in-house attorney. Now, I don't like to do homework. I'm probably worse than any kid in classes right now, but I just would like to share just a general, not saying this has to be our job spec, but just a general idea of what possibly we could have. If maybe we can manifest this one and come up with a good job spec for it. And I hope that we will have something presented to us at the August meeting, that we will, however, board chair you like to do it. As far as, organizing it, like I said, this is just a sample and an example. You can love it, hate it, trash it, but I wanted to share it.
Ms. Smith, if I could add really quickly, I actually have a draft of a job description on my desk right now.
Well, then you don't need one, but I just wanted to share it anyway,
Well,
because,
maybe you can look at yours
Yes.
and look at this
Mhm.
one and compare
Absolutely.
the two.
Thank you. I just wanted to give that information.
okay. So are you, should we anticipate maybe seeing something by August, and maybe,
As far as the job description,
yes, and
I
hopefully
think that would
vote
be
on it?
reasonable. I don't want to promise that because I don't want to break a promise, but I think that would be reasonable.
Okay. we manifesting today.
Okay.
It's a popular word tonight.
Yeah, it is a very popular word, and those of us who have been discussing this job, we've also talked about what would be an attractive salary. So we're looking forward to seeing all of that.
I've shared that draft with our company that's doing our audit at the moment and waiting for some feedback on that. And they may have, I would imagine they'll have some recommendations also.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to say something, just to,
Yes.
since it's a work session. We have not discussed an attorney or how the board is gonna go about it in years. And I know the way that we did, Dr. Brown, I know the way that we did, our CSFO. I just have to tell this story. What I don't want somebody to just go, here they are, and we never get to meet them. We were given notebooks for, and a pile of stuff so we could go home and look at the resumes of, the 4 or 5 candidates. And I think it was fun because this goes back to when we had, Porterfield and also Mary Briers. It was kind of a neat thing to go home, look at these resumes, and then, have a rubrics. And when we all got back, I'm going to use art as an example. All 3 of us were hands down, we won art. And it was kind of neat that we didn't collaborate together and go, hey, I really like that. It was like we all looked at the numbers and the data and came up with this, and we were excited about it. And I'd like to see us do some kind of process like that. Anything else I think would be disappointing. I want to get to meet. I want to meet these people. I want to talk to them face to face, and then us get together and discuss it.
We want the cream to rise to the top.
I'd like to think that when we put our job description out there, we'll get applications, and if we get 5 or 6 awesome applications, I think it would be our responsibility to help make, that decision, or to make that decision.
Yeah, just for clarity, I certainly didn't expect to just hire that person myself.
Well, and I didn't know because you're new, and then we didn't do it under Ann Roy Moore, so it was like.
We would certainly want the board to be making that decision, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there additional items as new business? I'm assuming that was
we start at
the
the
new
other
business.
end on new business. I'm always the first one. Is it?
Oh, no, I'm just looking for hands, and nobody has raised a hand.
Okay, well,
Ms.
I thought,
Cloud.
well, that wasn't kinda under new business, it was number, M, and now, or
It was
whatever it
added to
was,
the
now,
agenda, yes.
now we've got new business, all right. Dr. Brown, I really would like to see an organizational chart, even if you got blank spaces, what the actual job is, and even if no one's there, you got a little square, and eventually you'll fill it in. All right, let me finish.
Well, can I address
Yeah,
that one
yeah, you
first?
sure can, sure.
As I indicated in an email this morning, that is in process. We're waiting for the audit, which the board asked us to do, to provide some feedback on that as well before I sent that out, because I didn't want to send you one version of something and come back to you a month later and say, oops, not that one.
Okay. And then the second thing is Mercer. I don't know where Mercer is.
I have that on my desk right now, as a matter of fact, too, as well, and maybe sharing that with you as early as Friday.
Okay.
And I know it might not be your most updated, but do we not have the org chart on the website?
We do, but we have the upper layer of the organization. We'd like to have a more comprehensive org chart that covers the entire district.
Thank you. Other items, yes, Ms.
And
Smith.
this is due to a lot of, and I think all of us as board members have had this moment or moments, but there are a lot of nonprofits that would like to work with our students. And because we are, everything, the student is so centered, and we're talking about wraparound services and psychologists, and we even have nonprofits who have worked with our students for free, and I appreciate all of it. And but one of the things that, and I was not on the board when this happened, but I did some asking, how can we grow that network and have them to come more into our schools to work with our students? And what I was told is that MPS used to have a grant, and they had all the criteria laid out for what type of organizations they were looking for. And I don't want to say a monetary amount out loud, but, and I'll share it with you, Dr. Brown, and board members. But if we can just look into something like that, because there are organizations, they always, want to say, well, we want to do this, and I always say, well, how much? And if it's too much, I go, ooh, thank you, but that might be a little bit above our price range. but having these organizations to come in through a grant process will probably give us a better chance to monitor how they work with our students. And from what I was told, it probably, I don't know if it was a lot or a little, it was kind of, I guess, in the middle, so to speak. But if we could, just grow that network, have them in, have it be meaningful, and just another resource for our students at the end of the day, but just offered through a nonprofit. That way, we can direct them to a process of how to get involved. And if there's money involved, this is the process that you go through, and here's the criteria. Just an idea,
Well,
not something I'm putting in stone.
Okay,
was
yes,
waiting-
I
I was
think
waiting.
several of
Oh,
us
she's
are
waiting on you.
excited
I
to
was waiting
participate.
for the
We have
president to
the-
acknowledge.
Thank you. The Apple Corps, I see your hand. I know that the superintendent wants to speak, and we have talked to the family and community engagement, so hopefully there's a collaborative going on. But your hand was up. Let's hear from you.
But that's exactly what I was about to say, that the
I'm sorry.
collaboration is going on. As a matter of fact, I talked to Dr. Lineberger about that, and he's doing some research so that we can coordinate the academics and coordinate the technology into what, we've been saying Apple Core, but the acronym stands for Community Outreach for Reinforcing Education. And we want to work with the business community, with the churches, with the PTA, with community at large. And we want to have a framework in place so that people will be able to volunteer, so that we can come in and work together to set up long-term and short-term goals so that we can move forward together in unity and try to do what we can to make everything best for our students.
Okay, Dr. Keith.
And, we sort of thought about using, we have the professional services building that's not being used at this time. There are computers over there with different things that we can train. We can train the churches on how to work with students and just have a whole lot of things going on. So these are just ideas, brainstorming ideas that, of course, we have to check and make sure we meet all the criteria first.
Absolutely. Dr. Keith, and then
I got a couple of things. One, I know when we sit here at this table, Dr. Brown sits here and he normally takes notes. And anytime I've ever addressed anything with you, you have always, even if I've addressed you on your phone or text, you remember and you address it. I may not like it all the time, but you address it. And I know what Pam Cloud said a little while ago. We talk about Mercer, we talk about attorneys, we talk about org charts, and you've handled it. But we've also done other things like the HR. We were going to take step by step, move into this. That was something, just little updates that we don't have. Another one was I have said to, and I love Jade. I just love Jade. She's like my daughter. But we took videos here, and we never have seen these videos. And I've mentioned those videos before, and I want you to write that down and go, okay, this is where your videos are.
The website.
There's that.
The new website.
On behalf of two things, Pam Portis has asked me to mention, that was the deep dive, when we were going to do the deep dive into HR, that kind of thing. I mean, where are we going with that? It's just, it doesn't have to talk about it now, but it's just something, are we moving forward with?
I shared that in email this morning.
You did, okay, then, that's my bad, I haven't read it yet, okay, that's, Lisa. The next one is policy, and I'm not trying to step on toes, but we've got a lot of new people in central office that sometimes I think because of their positions, I took things as bullying certain principals, and some things that were said that I took personally. And when you are going against policy, that's why I was like, hey, we need to sit down, because they don't know policy. If they are breaking policy, we are here, we are told time and again, that's what y'all's job is. Don't get out of your lane, make policy. And when you have new people coming in here, going to schools that we praise and saying things like, you're not special, I take offense to that. I really do. And it just, I'm not using names, but it did tick me. It's not set well with me, especially when you're breaking policy. If we're gonna keep policy, we need to keep it. If we're gonna break policy, and I understand maybe you're new, but I take some of this thing as harassment of some of our good principals, retaliation, and I'm honestly, that's why I've sat here quietly all night. I didn't come in with my jokester self, because I'm offended with a group that tends to bully and make somebody go against policy when all they're doing is their job.
Noted. I'll take that into account, and I note that. I wanted to go back to the partnership question. When we're looking at partnerships with community businesses, we're looking for authentic partnerships where there's a give-take, meaning they provide services and opportunities to our kids, but we also provide our kids to give opportunities to those businesses. So when we're talking about partnerships, that's what we'd like them to look for. We get, I dare use the word solicited, by numbers of different organizations who want to sell us goods. They aren't necessarily the goods that we need for our students. So when we're talking about partnerships, we're looking for authentic partnerships that provide services to our students. I'm quite certain, I know I get approached by numbers of different organizations. I would assume you would as well.
I think she was talking about nonprofits, just people that want to be.
We are looking for symbiotic relationships.
Okay.
So that,
Yes, thank you.
there is a give and
Yes.
and a take.
Yes, because
we're just not.
we want our kids to benefit not only from the services, but also from the experience and whatever that is. And we're talking about true business partnerships. That then grows our entire community. It gives our kids an opportunity to give back as well. So that's essentially what we look for in partnerships. And we have a ton of those already in the books, always looking to get more. So if there are other nonprofits that want to work with us and provide some services, more than happy to entertain those conversations and see what actually can come to fruition.
And I'm glad we came back to family and community engagement, because when we talked about this, it must have been pre-pandemic, but we're several months out of what, I guess, in the area that we call post-pandemic now. And we are ready to move forward. We have asked that information be provided, directions be given, applications, if necessary, forms for us to fill out or complete for these nonprofits. We have scores of nonprofits that do want to help and provide support for our students. So hopefully, with our new director, we do have a new director for family and community engagement, and Dr. Linebarger, we're going to be able to get that and hopefully produced sooner rather than later.
Well,
And
I'm sorry,
I also heard concerns about the videos, but we do have some technical issues with the ones that you're thinking about. And I'm hoping that we will revisit those and have them done if there need to be revisions, because there were issues with those at the time, and some changes might need to be made.
Well, with all this said, I think instead of waiting another month to come back, maybe we ought to have a special session before August. I mean, we've got a lot going on in it, and school is coming about, and I know it's a critical time for everyone, but we're kind of like the lead when all of this is going on to make sure it does get put into place correctly. So I'm asking maybe for a special session before August.
Let's look at what can be accomplished, what we can do, because everything that we've asked for might not take a vote. We only need to have a special call meeting if we need to take a vote. If it's just information that's being provided by the superintendent or his staff, you could get that information to us as you do in the board connections or an addendum, yes?
But how are we gonna have conversations with each other and it be,
If I could add, there's a possibility I was going to request one anyway
Thank
for a number of different issues we might need to confront. But certainly if the board wants to have an additional work session, y'all call a meeting, we can certainly get that scheduled.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there additional questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, the work session will be adjourned and we will move into our regular meeting. Before we move into the regular meeting, I would like to just take a point of personal privilege and, number one, apologize for my tardiness. I tried to be here before 5, didn't quite make it, but thank you, Vice President Brown, for taking care of our business. Additionally, you will notice that there is an empty seat at our table. There are often times when we cannot all be here, but there is illness, and I did get her permission before saying anything that Pam Portis has had a health issue. And the good news is she went home today.
Great.
So she is home. She feels fine. And I understand that she is watching. So, Pam, we miss you. We miss your voice. And we would we'll be delighted when you're able to come back. In the past few weeks, we have experienced some deaths among our security personnel family members. We have gotten the news of illnesses in our education family and recent deaths. So before we gavel in, I would like for us to acknowledge that many in our family are going through things, and many of them would like to know that we are thinking about them and that they are truly in our thoughts and prayers. If you don't mind, another moment of silence for those we love and care about. Thank you. She just reminded me, I did not tell you that it was, when I talked about the recent deaths, it was recently the death of one of our students, a rising junior at one of our high schools. So please keep those who are hurting in your thoughts and wish them well. However you do that. Again, thank you so much. And Pam, hurry home. The July 11, 2023 regular meeting of the Montgomery County Board of Education will come to order. Again, good evening and thank you for joining us. Please remember to mute all electronic devices. We know that a majority of our voting members must be present to constitute a quorum. There are 6 members present. I declare we have a quorum present. Our agenda was posted in Assembly and has been available for review. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda by unanimous consent. Is there objection to adopting this agenda? Hearing no objection, the agenda is adopted. July, another month of celebration for communities, families, and friends. I have spent the past month, in the name of scholarship and service, traveling a lot. As I reflected on my remarks for today's meeting, a dear friend offered me this quote: Service nourishes our souls the way food nourishes our body. It is necessary for growth and essential for joy. When I think about the work that we do, the service that we provide, it does bring me joy. This quote from my friend's devotional, 21 Days to Joy, reminds us that as we busy ourselves in life's journey, we often get lost in the trappings of self-gratification. We become so enwrapped in our own needs, our own problems, our own desires, that we fail to see the needs and the problems and the desires of others. Service is the key to a meaningful life. It is the key that opens the door to joy and gratification. It's the roadmap to peace and contentment. How wonderful it is to know that joy is ours for the asking. When all else fails, joy takes up the fight and reminds us that the battle is not ours. Colleagues, the 2023-2024 edition of Policy Pipeline will be published on July 20th. Hopefully you got that announcement. The subscribers-only webinar will be held on Thursday, July 27th at 10 a.m. That's Central Time. As members, I hope that each of us will participate in the webinar as she is able. It is important to note that as a board, we do set policy for our district in collaboration with our essential partners, our local, state, and federal government at varying levels. Working collectively, we are able to provide an essential service to our students and to the community at large. As we discussed with some policy changes that we'd like to see, that might mean our collaboration at this table. It might mean our advocating at other levels of government, whether it's state or federal. But let us take joy in knowing that we are not in the fight for equity and excellence alone. Thankfully, we work in concert with the Alabama State Department of Education, federal and state laws that govern education, as well as district-level professionals and legal advisors to ensure that we are setting reasonable and sound policy for our district. Over the next few weeks and months, this board will review policy manuals to ensure alignment, consistency, and relevance. Looking at district highlights, there is some great news to share in MPS where teaching and learning never stop, even during the summer months. Let's look at a few things that we've achieved. The Ed Farm Code camps, iCode camps, were hosted at Brubaker, Bellingrath, Capitol Heights, Carr, and South Lawn Middle Schools. Students were able to dive into the world of coding with a variety of hands-on activities. Also this summer, Carver and Lamp High Schools, their speech and debate teams joined forces during the National Speech and Debate Competition in Phoenix, Arizona. The combined teams were among those representing the state of Alabama in the World Schools Debate. Congratulations to all the students who participated. Finally, let us congratulate Faith Lynn Nugent of Floyd Middle Magnet, who won first place in the extemporaneous health category at the International HOSA competition. Faith competed against students from all over the United States, China, Canada, Mexico, and Korea. This is a reminder she won first place. Congratulations, Faith. Congratulations to all of our students. At this time, Ms. Jones will present some recognitions. Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Madam President, Dr. Brown, and board members. Tonight we'll keep it brief. As you all know, summer months are extremely busy, but good things, as we just heard, still continue to occur. We want to share a video, Dr. Keith, of our summer graduates. We're really proud of our graduates, but I want to take a moment and point of privilege to congratulate our summer leaders, our principals who worked the summer programs. They did an excellent job and we're extremely proud of our graduates. So we're closing out our commencement service, and if Scott, if you'll go ahead and play.
We're excited to have you this morning. We're saying no matter when graduation takes place, it's always a time to celebrate. We are so thrilled to see you all into the world and you're doing different things. And always keep in mind that not only are you doing this for yourself, but you're doing it for your community and you're doing it for the world. We expect you to have an impact on everything you touch. And we expect great things from you. Make sure you expect those things from yourselves as well. Again, congratulations, and we're excited to be part of this journey with you. Thank you. And if we're successful, all of us can choose joy. It's enough to make a bad thing good. It's enough to bring life back to your weary bones. It's enough to remember what really matters in the midst of so much that doesn't. It's even enough to change history and enough to change the world. Sometimes it's best to sit in a chair and strap yourself in so you can listen to constructive praise and constructive criticism about yourself. Trust me, it will help you immensely, and it will help you put things in perspective, come up with solutions, be your best self, and find purpose. My journey and purpose has led me to serve people with leadership, inspiration, and organization. When you find that purpose, you will never work another day in your life.
Those are similar comments to yours.
Let's give our 63 graduates a round of applause. And we would also like to thank Mr. Gary Cobbs, the CEO of the YMCA Greater Region of Montgomery, for being our guest speaker. Madam President.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. At this time, we move to our consent agenda. Dr. Brown.
Madam President, on approval for the consent agenda, we have items A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J for approval. I'd like to recommend approval of those, of that said agenda.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent that we approve items A through J. Is there a motion for adoption?
I would like to table 2,
Okay, they are,
C and D, until we can have further discussion.
okay. We are looking at, I don't think we want to table, we want to,
You need a motion.
if someone wants to hold, I think we can just hold those and go ahead and take our vote, if someone makes a motion to vote. So at this time, I'd like to know if there's a motion to approve items A, B, E, F, G, H, I, and J.
I motion that we approve those letters.
I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve all of the items on our consent agenda except at this time, items C and D. All those, is there a discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by raising your hand. It's unanimous. At this time, Dr. Brown.
Are we taking any votes on C and D, or we just,
If you go ahead and move those, you don't
As a
need to
separate
move them
vote?
again?
No.
They're separated.
okay, yeah, I'd like to recommend that we approve items C and D.
Okay. Is there has been, I'm sorry, you've heard the recommendation of our superintendent to please approve items C and D. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve items C and D.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve items C and D from on our agenda. Is there discussion?
Just real quick, on D. With this approval, will we be brought back, the procedures for the district electronic device policy? because I think the concern was having board input from what I was hearing. But will there be, as the amendments are made, will that come back to us?
Absolutely,
All right.
yes. Is there further discussion?
Can we not vote on these separately? I mean, are we just putting C and D and we gotta vote, I mean, can we not vote on C? And then D?
If that is your request, would you like to make a motion, an amendment to the motion?
I'd like to make an amendment that we vote separately on those, C and D.
And that would take a second also.
I second it.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded that we take those items separately. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of separating C and D, let it be known by a raise of hands. Are you voting?
Yeah, I said that's fine, if you just wanna separate them.
Okay. So that would be a 3-3 vote, so it fails with a tie. Okay. All those in favor of items, back to the original motion, of items C and D being approved, raise your hands. 4. All those opposed, raise your hands. 2. 4-2. C and D pass. Okay, at this time, we are ready for certified personnel minutes. Dr. Brown.
Madam President, I'd like to approve the certified personnel minutes for approval. I'd like to recommend the certified minutes for approval.
You have heard the recommendation of the superintendent. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for certified personnel
Minutes.
report minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve the certified personnel minutes. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll take the vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. It's unanimous. Dr. Brown.
Madam President, I'd like to recommend the approval of certified personnel minutes, the addendum, for your consideration.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent regarding the addendum to the certified personnel minutes. Is there a motion?
I second the addendum.
No, we have to
Oh, I
move.
moved to second the,
You moved.
To approve.
approve it, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll get it right in a minute.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept the superintendent's recommendation to approve certified personnel minutes, the addendum. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, raise your hands. It's unanimous. Item C, Dr. Brown.
I'd like to recommend for approval the classified personnel minutes.
You've heard the recommendation of the superintendent regarding our classified personnel minutes. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I motion that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for classified personnel minutes.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve the superintendent's recommendation regarding our classified personnel minutes. Is there discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor, raise your hands. 4, 5. All those opposed?
No, I
Okay,
counted.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Thank you. It is again unanimous. That concludes the action items for our meeting. Our next meeting is, I think, what is it, August 15th?
Yes.
August 15th. Location,
I'm going to hope that it's at the new building, but don't
to
hold me
be
to that.
determined. Thank you. We are adjourned.